News drops that we are expecting Texas State to receive an offer from the Pac-12 in the near future. It's kind of odd language, expected to receive, huh? Also, rumors of a mystery ninth member to join the Pac-12 and updates on settlements and negotiations. This is the Let's Run podcast. Folks, welcome to the show today. Want to thank you for checking out the channel. Again, I'm a UNLV content creator. I focus on the Runnin' Rebels, the UNLV football team, but I do talk about all things related to college football, specifically on the West Coast, sometimes a little bit of Big 12, mostly UNLV. And then, of course, while we're in it, conference realignment while it's here, wanted to do a video every single day this week because I think this is a critical, I know it is a critical week, both for the Pac-12, both for the Mountain West. And I really feel like this is kind of an existential crisis, critical breaking point, especially for the Mountain West, as the coming days are, we don't know anything new. We know that the Pac-12 basically stole the Mountain West's media spot with CBS. Even if the Mountain West retains CBS as a partner, it will not be as good of a deal as they had before. The Mountain West previously had a relationship with ESPN and Fox, of course. They still have a relationship with Fox as far as we know. But the Mountain West's media picture is not great at the moment. But the big piece of news, and it's tough because it's not really news. We knew this was coming. This doesn't really change anything from what we already knew was happening. But Pete Thamel today reported that Texas State is expecting to receive an offer. Now, what does that mean exactly? Essentially, I don't really know what it means. So obviously, it means that Texas State is expecting to join the Pac-12 here in the next couple of days. And, that's what we've expected. We know that they have to join before the July 1st due date because of the Sunbelt exit fee, because the Sunbelt exit fee will double. But I just thought the language of that expecting to receive an offer was a little bizarre. Now, that could just be how the conference, it could be that the Pac-12 specifically leaked that language to Texas State. That wouldn't surprise me. However, something tells me maybe it's coming from the Texas State side. I know that there has been fierce negotiations between the Pac-12 and Texas State regarding what media share that they're going to get. I've always maintained that Texas State as the best available option, seemingly available at least for the time being that we know of, really has all the leverage in the negotiation. But Texas State expecting to receive an offer. Is that coming from Texas State or is it coming from the Pac-12? Either of those two entities could have reported that. And I don't know that Texas State would have reported that if they weren't confident that was going to happen. And if it's coming from the Pac-12 side, then that's no issue, of course. I just thought the language of the announcement was a little weird. Expecting to receive an offer. You've heard, usually with conference realignment news, you hear this school and this conference are in deep negotiations, though nothing has been finalized yet. That's basically the first step generally. I don't feel like I'm used to seeing that language, but if you guys have any instances of that, a national reporter like Thamel or Ross Dellinger or whoever, if you have another instance of them using language like that when bringing up a piece of news, let me know because I don't remember. And I just think that's kind of odd language. And I wonder, your mind wanders, is this another negotiating tactic? Is this Texas State saying, hey, we're going to join, you're going to give us a full offer and we're going to leak it to the media because what other choice do you have? Because that deadline's coming and you're not out of mediation yet. So ultimately, perilous times for the Pac-12. And I did want to kind of indulge perilous time for the Mountain West. The Pac-12 is going to be okay. They're going to survive. The Mountain West is in a little bit of danger. I do expect them to survive, of course. And as a UNLV person, obviously, while we're a part of that conference, I need it to succeed because I need UNLV to succeed and I want UNLV to succeed. And you have to understand that everything that I say is going to have at least a slight, even no matter how hard I try, because my goal is promoting UNLV and UNLV's success. Everything I say is going to have a slight UNLV bias at the very least, and sometimes even more so. If you know that and expect that coming into this content, it'll make a little bit more sense to you. And I hope that you're okay with that. I'm a fan of UNLV. I don't do this to be paid. I'm not a professional journalist or anything. So it's okay that I have a UNLV bias. I got to be honest with you. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. So you feel free to call it out in the comment section. I am a pro UNLV show. The show exists to promote UNLV. But I do want to talk about, and UNLV, I do want to talk to you guys about a little rumor that's been going around. It doesn't seem like it's grown, but essentially, there was a rumor that the Pac-12, and this didn't just come from, Joe Schmo, person on the internet, sauces or whatever, although I like that guy, the Oregon State guy that has sauces in his name. I think it's pretty funny. It's kind of been hinted at that the Pac-12 didn't really want to stop at 8. Now, that makes sense. You don't want to have 8 members of your conference because while that is a conference, 8 members is a conference. 9 members is better so that you can play a 9-game conference schedule and only have to do 3 non-conference games. Scheduling out of conference games is expensive. Generally, you do like a D2 game at home, so you pay them a paycheck to come play at your place. You get a couple of Power 4 conference games or a couple of other Group of 5 conference teams, but 9 conference games is the standard. It's what you should have. It's what most conferences have. It's what the Mountain West in its current form will have. It's what the Pac-12, the AAC, I believe every D1 college football conference has it. So yes, adding Texas State does get them to that 8th full member of the conference, but 9 is the preferable number. And Texas State, the Pac-12 isn't going to just add a 9th school just to add a 9th school. They will go in with 8 schools instead of adding a school that they don't want. But there has been rumors, and I'm gonna indulge it a little bit today, even though it's unconfirmed and unsubstantiated, that a 9th member is quickly approaching. And we know this from Canzano a couple of weeks ago, and a few reporters. Again, I'm not a reporter. I'm not a guy that you come to for inside information. That's not my role. But we know that the Pac-12 is pushing for a 9th member. Now, who is that 9th member? Who is that 9th mystery member? Obviously, a lot of these names, I'm going to put up a list. I made a little PowerPoint for you guys. I'm going to put a list of how I view who this mystery 9th member could be. And again, guys, this is a rumor. It's unsubstantiated, and it doesn't come from me. I did not talk to a source here. This is third hand. Everybody that's getting this information mostly is getting it third hand. But there is a legitimate person that has said, hey, there's a 9th member coming, and I think it's going to be this person. A legitimate person that's given legitimate good info in the past has indicated that is that is the case. And another person, a couple other people reported that there had been some timing issues and some scheduling conflicts during mediation, that while mediation was ongoing, the parties weren't just like sitting in a room alone for a month. They had been coming and going. They had left mediation and then gone back into mediation. I believe that recently, last week, members from both conferences, both the Pac-12 and the Mountain West, I wouldn't say I'm reporting this, but this is just what I heard. And I heard this from a pretty good person, that they had left kind of mediation a little bit with the proposed scenarios and gone back to the conference members because there was basically a gag order keeping people from talking. And I think the Pac-12 is pushing for a 9th member. Are they going to get it? I don't know. But I wanted to run you guys through who I think these options are. So let's share my screen here. Let's pull up my little untitled presentation here. Let's go into present mode, slideshow. You can see my thumbnail I made here. Oh, no. Wait. Okay. So I thought about it in terms of like the Pokemon, like who's that mystery pack member? And so here's a little slideshow for you guys. Here's what I think. I'm going to tier it out. Who I don't think is it, who I'm pretty sure, who I'm 99.9% sure that it isn't. Although you never know, but I'm very confident. And I put it into tiers from least likely to most likely. And let's run through all the tiers because it's not as many options as you guys think. So not in consideration, I don't have North Texas or UTSA in consideration as the mystery member. UTSA's facilities are a little rough. They play in basically a convention center for their basketball. And they do play in the Alamo Dome for their football, but it's kind of a rundown facility. There's been some comments made by people at UTSA, and again, I could be wrong about UTSA. I don't feel as confident about UTSA as I do about North Texas, but I do not see, financially, I think they're okay in the AAC. They're expecting to receive a better payout in the AAC in the near future. And there just hasn't seemed to be any sort of appetite from people at UTSA to join the Pac-12. Also, North Texas, the athletic director of North Texas basically came out and said, guys, if there was a financial incentive for us to join the Pac-12, we would have done so. And so I think those comments, alongside, again, for both of these schools, a really high payout and exit fee for from the AAC to the Pac-12, I just don't see either of these schools pulling the trigger and taking that leap. And so, not in consideration North Texas or UTSA. I know a couple people might disagree with me on that, but financially, I just don't think those schools are in a position to jump. Not that their finances are any worse than, like UNLV's finances obviously aren't in the greatest position either. But there just hasn't been any public, notification or interest by either of these schools to ever join the Pac-12, basically since the beginning. So I have them as not in consideration. Now let's go to tier 3. This is the nope, no way. But, maybe, but no way. And this is kind of, there's a name in there people I know are going to freak out about. But these schools could be coming in as a full member, although especially with UConn, I don't think that they will leave the Big East, their basketball team at least. Memphis, again, that exit fee is just a big problem. If they were going to make the jump to the Pac-12, I think that I think that they would have already done it if they were going to make that jump to the Pac-12. But if the Pac-12 throws an absurd offer at Memphis, maybe they're saving money on litigation and expenses, and they're saying, "Hey, Memphis, we'll give you $30 million to just come join the Pac-12." Maybe the Pac-12 is at the point where they're just like, "We want who we want. Here's a big load of cash, and Memphis, we're going to go after you." Again, this is not going to happen, Land, for me. I don't think any of these schools are possible. And then, I have Liberty here. Now, look, before you bring out the pitchforks and the knives and whatever, Liberty is a school with a lot of money. I'm not saying they would join as a full member, but if they need a football playing member, if they wanted another football playing member after Texas State as a full member, maybe Liberty says, "Hey, we'll front the cash. We'll take a lower payout. We're a good football program. We really care about this stuff." Don't think it's likely. The same kind of goes for Tulane. I think Tulane is really focused, again, from what I've seen, in that ACC realm, kind of like Memphis is, to be honest with you. I just don't think any of these schools, even UConn, if you're not getting their basketball, there's really no point in trying to go after UConn. And I get that their football has been independent for a long time, and it's kind of a shame that UConn is in the position that it's in football-wise. But that university is dumping everything into basketball. And so I don't see them joining, even as football only, into the Pac-12. So I don't think it's any of these schools. Just don't see it happening. Let's move on to the next tier. So this tier is, so you're telling me there's a chance. Let's jump into these schools. Okay. I want you to look at this list of schools with a grain of salt, with a with old Dumb and Dumber here, Jim Carrey. So you're telling me there's a chance. 1 in a million? There's a chance. Sacramento State is in a really weird position because seems like their waiver to join the D1 football has been denied as of right now. They're without a conference. It looks like they're going to be an FCS independent playing an FBS schedule, which is a financially absurd thing to try and do right now. They just spent a lot of money on getting Brennan Marion and Mike Bibby, and I believe Shaq is a part of Sacramento State as like a GM of those programs. I don't see it. I don't think that there's a way that they can do it. I'm very confident that they're not a member, but if there was a last second hoorah, Hail Mary kind of thing and the Pac-12 was desperate, maybe they would do it. And honestly, with any of these schools, even if you look at them and you say, why on earth would the Pac-12 add that school? I would just say that, be confident in your brand. Not every conference is perfect top to bottom. If the Pac-12 added any of these schools at a greatly reduced media share, I wouldn't think less of the Pac-12, I really wouldn't, because you add who you can add. You can say, hey, this is our conference and we're bringing in this guy as a partner. They're taking a reduced media share. They're going to be a partner for us. And I don't think that it would be disrespectful. So Sacramento State, probably not. Western Kentucky, I was looking at other schools in Conference USA. There's about a $2 million exit fee. Western Kentucky has actually been a pretty reasonable football program. And I know you're rolling your eyes, guys. Please just stay with me while we wait to get to the mystery member at the end. I don't know. It's a warm body that plays football and cares about football, even if it's maybe not the greatest thing. It's actually, I think it's actually closer than Memphis is. To maybe I'm wrong about that. My geography is it's kind of late at night. University of Louisiana, the Cajuns. I think that's the right university. When I was looking up the logos here, again, they take their football pretty seriously. They've got I don't hate their stadium. Actually, I think it's kind of cool. They've won at least at the Sun Belt level pretty well. I don't really see the Pac-12 going to this school either, but they are a warm body, and maybe the Pac-12 adds them just to get to 9 members and add another. They wouldn't be a travel partner with Texas State, but at least add another school in the region. I think travel is kind of an issue with the University of Louisiana Lafayette, and then New Mexico State. Again, like I would kind of respect the Pac-12 if they just said, you know what, like screw everybody, we're just going to take New Mexico State. We're very confident in our brands. New Mexico State, we're going to get them at a 25% share or whatever. It'll be more than they made in Conference USA. They're in the right time zone. The travel's not bad. I believe Las Cruces has a big enough airport that they shouldn't have any problem getting to and from Las Cruces. Yes, the Mountain West did kind of steal New Mexico State's thunder by adding UTEP, which is the bigger school in that geographic time zone, I think, just in the bigger market area. But New Mexico State has probably had a better football resume over the last 15, 20 years than UTEP. And they certainly have had at least a respectable basketball program for a long time, even if their basketball program isn't quite what it was 10, 15 years ago. They do have a history of basketball and people that care. And again, I might even add UTEP to this category. Maybe the Pac-12 says, you know what, screw it. We're going to go Texas. We're going to go Texas State. Maybe we're going to try and steal UTEP from the Mountain West. I'm actually not sure if that's possible, which is why I didn't put UTEP on this page, just because I don't know what UTEP signed with the Mountain West. I know that they signed a letter of intent or a letter of a motion of understanding, something along those lines. But I do not think that UTEP's president has signed on to a grant of rights yet with the Mountain West. And so the Pac-12 could say, hey, we'll steal UTEP from you. Which is probably all a part of this negotiations. And again, I don't see the Pac-12 going that route. That's why you're telling me there's a chance. Let's move to the next tier. It looks like I skipped a tier. Tier 1, that's the ticket. The most likely, I think. And it's Rice. So Rice, not a great football program. They really struggle. They're definitely not even. They're like 4th place in their own market. Rice is in Houston. And, it's a private university, but it's got a massive endowment. It's got a prestigious academic center, which I imagine would be appealing to the Pac-12 schools, at least in a certain sense. That's kind of like, the Mountain West adding UC Davis, which is a very good academic school. Rice is in the AAC. I don't think that this is going to happen. And I'll get into why, I don't think it's going to happen, but Rice is subject to that $27 million exit fee because they have not announced they're leaving the AAC. But Rice does have a big bucket of cash behind them. Now, they're an academic school, so they've always struggled a little bit at the major sports. But if there was a school that I thought it was most likely that the mystery member would be, besides the school that we're going to talk about next, which I think is more smoke. I heard somebody say it's more smoke than fire. I think that was JY from the Big Mountain. And I agree that the mystery member is more smoke than fire, but we'll get to it in just a sec. I think Rice is a school that could feasibly join as the 9th member. Academic wise, you live with it because it's a good academic school. They play football. They are in a major market, even if they don't capture that market, which it just means travel is going to be easy. And they're not like close to San Marcos and Texas State, but they're at least in the same region. And so, yeah, I would say Rice is the most realistic of the schools that we've talked about so far. But wait, oh my gosh, guys, a new challenger is approaching. A new school is coming into frame. And what is that school? I'm sure it's somebody that you haven't talked about if you're in the Pac-12 world. I'm sure it's a school that you're tired of listening to. I'm sure it's a school whose podcast you're listening to right now. It's the Running Rebels. It's the UNLV. It's the UNLV football team. It's the city of Las Vegas. This has been the rumor. There was a rumor spread by a reputable person. Again, rumor, not sourced, but not like a legit source. Like this isn't something coming from mediation, like directly from mediation. But there is a person out there that stated, and this person is connected, that stated that UNLV would be the 9th member of the Pac-12. Now, I wanted to go over two scenarios about this possible hypothetical because I have been saying for months now, a couple of months now, even though it's not my wish, even though I really just think that UNLV needs to be out of the Mountain West. I don't think we belong in the Mountain West anymore. I don't think the Mountain West. I don't even know. It's good for the Mountain West to have UNLV, but to have a school in UNLV that you're paying so much money apparently to, who is clearly and publicly talking about how they just want to get away from you as fast as possible. Like UNLV is publicly putting out there that their goal in this Mountain West deal that they're into right now is to leave the conference as soon as possible. So I want to give you we're going to do a couple of slides here. Why to believe the UNLV rumor and why it's not going to happen. So let's do why to believe first. First things first, UNLV is locked into a grant of rights with the Mountain West. Legally, UNLV's in the Mountain West. The outcome of the litigation of the exit fees and the poaching penalties does not change the language that UNLV is locked into. They're committed to the Mountain West. But I have come to realize, and it's something that I'm surprised wasn't talked about before, but I think the poaching fees have always kind of been very legally dubious because, and I'm studying for the bar exam right now. So, when you study a contract clause, when you study a contract, when you have a liquidated damages clause, which is basically if one party breaks the contract, they have to pay the other party this amount of money. When you have something like that into a contract, it has to be really tied to a real pecuniary loss to the other party. Like say, if I am building a car, but I need you to build the engine. And so I build 5 cars without engines. And then all of a sudden you don't perform and say, I'm never going to perform. There could be a clause in the contract saying, well, you have to compensate me for the 5 shells that I created because now they don't have engines and now they're useless. It's tied to a specific loss, but the poaching penalties really aren't. Because the exit fees exist, the conference will be compensated for all of these schools leaving. It's kind of penalizing the same thing twice. And so there might be some legal effect to them. I'm not saying the Mountain West is going to get $0 of the poaching penalties. And you may say, well, hey, the Pac-12 said they were going to follow this contract. Why should they be able to get out of it? And the best example for that is always, if I get into an illegal drug deal and I say, hey, I'll sell you this illegal drug if you give me this amount of money. And then I give you the illegal drug, but you never give me that money. I cannot then go to the court and say, hey, this guy and I had a deal to sell these illegal drugs and buy for an exchange of money. The court's going to be like, well, that contract was illegal, so we can't enforce that. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to enforce the drug dealer against you. And that would be essentially the argument against the poaching penalties, that these poaching penalties are illegal. So where am I getting at with this? The exit fees, I think, are pretty grounded in legal theory. But, and this is not something that's been talked about, exit fees generally and historically, when they're settled down, are not paid in liquid cash sums. They're not. They're paid out over time, which makes perfect sense. These schools aren't expected to have tens of millions of dollars sitting in liquid cash in bank accounts. And so, for example, when SMU left the AAC to go to the ACC, they had a $25 million deal to exit the AAC basically a year early. But that amount was paid out over like 10 to 12 years. It wasn't given as a lump sum by the SMU to the AAC. So what does that mean? Essentially, these Pac-12 schools, and I think they're going to be successful in arguing this, and I think that they've been successful in arguing this, are saying, hey, we know we're going to have to pay some exit fees. We know that you've already withheld revenue from us. We're not going to pay you a lump sum. We'll pay your exit fee, but it's going to be over 7 or 8 years, maybe 10 years, honestly. Maybe they'll try and follow the SMU trend. And the problem for the Mountain West is they need the liquid cash right now in order to try and fulfill their financial obligations to the schools remaining in the Mountain West. It's not just to UNLV. It's also to New Mexico. It's also to Wyoming. Every school, Reno, they've all been promised some amount of liquid cash in 2026. And so the fact that the Mountain West might not have the cash on hand to make cash payments to a school in UNLV who badly needs a liquid cash payment because we're trying to up our spending and invest in the school. But, when you invest, you take on risk. We need liquid cash right now. And if the Mountain West can't give it to us, that's a problem. Further, the Pac 12 taking CBS as the primary media partner away from the Mountain West, and that's not to say the Mountain West can have no relationship with CBS, but that puts the Mountain West media deal in grave danger. So not only is the Mountain West going to say, is the Mountain West maybe in a position where they're going to say, hey, we don't have this liquid cash to pay you. They're also in a position where they're going to say, hey, our media deal, I know our Gore says we're going to try and keep it above 3.5. It might be lower than that, 3.5 million. So now these schools in the Mountain West are looking at the situation. They're saying, hey, well, you're promising UNLV and Air Force all this cash. Like, what are we doing here? Like, why is UNLV of all schools getting $25 million when I'm New Mexico and I have, the conference championships in basketball, or why I'm Wyoming and I've had a lot more consistent winning than UNLV has in football, or I'm even Reno, who's been better in basketball than UNLV since they joined the Mountain West Conference. Like, all these schools are looking at UNLV and Air Force and saying like, hey, like, we need this money. And you two clearly aren't fully committed here, because UNLV, you're talking about joining a power league and using this no exit fee thing. And Air Force, you clearly are eyeing the American schools. And so essentially, I think why to believe these parties, while there is a binding legal agreement to keep and lock UNLV in the Mountain West, no matter what, I think these parties are saying, hey, what if we, the Pac 12, and maybe the Pac 12 would help subsidize this, we, the Pac 12, grant you a higher liquid cash payout than we would normally, than we technically have to. We're willing to give you more liquid cash. Heck, maybe a couple of other concessions that we'll talk about in just a sec. What if they say, hey, we'll give you $50 million liquid cash right now, starting for your 2026 season, but you give us UNLV. You already lost your biggest media partner. Your media deal is not going to be that great. Give us UNLV. We'll give you more of what you want. And the other schools in the Mountain West might look at each other and say, hey, that means more cash for us. And maybe this time, instead of two schools, and the wild card in this is Air Force. I'll talk about Air Force in just a second. But instead of a school in UNLV getting a $25 million payment while we're all getting 10 or 5 or 6 or whatever, maybe we all take a much higher liquid cash payout and we split it evenly, because we're committed to this conference in a way that UNLV isn't. What if it's all a part of the settlement? That's why to believe. What if the other schools in the Mountain West are in a better financial position by letting go of UNLV? And you may say, hey, well, they're going to lose Vegas. They're going to lose the ability to use Vegas for stuff. Listen, guys, at this level, the primary value that these schools are providing, because none of them have great brand power outside of Air Force, really, and UNLV is growing, obviously. The value is the time slot. They go to CBS and they say, hey, you don't have to pay us 3.5, give us 2, or maybe around the Sun Belt deal, 2.5. They go to Fox. They maybe use Paramount Plus or HBO Max or TNT, and they say, hey, we'll take a reduced media share payout. But they also get a much higher liquid cash payout directly from the conference than they would have gotten had UNLV remained in the conference. Now, I want to, that's basically the theory of the case, that it's all a part of the settlement, and that among a couple of other things, financially, the schools in the Mountain West can, that everybody can be better off. Because let me tell you, the reason why UNLV stayed in the Mountain West is because they thought that they were going to be in a better financial position than they would be had they joined the Pac 12. But if the numbers aren't there for the Mountain West, despite the binding agreement, it's going to be really hard to keep UNLV happy in this new conference. And with so much of that money being promised to UNLV, the other schools are probably like, what the heck, man? This is dumb. We have an uncommitted school here. So let's talk about the reasons not to believe. The Mountain West has announced that they are going to move their headquarters to Las Vegas. They have re-upped a deal to host the Mountain West Conference basketball tournament in Las Vegas. And frankly, I have never, ever gotten the impression that people in Las Vegas on UNLV's campus would be willing to take the L on this. They are convinced that not only are they Houdini, they are Einstein, they are Oppenheimer, they are the mad scientist with the devilish and scheming and brilliant plan that's going to get them where they want to go. And this Mountain West decision, we're going to prove the world. Everybody telling us we have to join the Pac-12. We'll tell you how. We'll tell you how things are. That's the mentality of people at UNLV. It's going to take it's going to take a heck of a push to get these guys off of their ledge. Now, the previous UNLV president, Keith Whitfield, he resigned a few months ago, was the chairman of the Mountain West board. So it's not quite as bad as it used to be. And if the math isn't there, maybe their minds could be changed because they don't want to be humiliated. But I just don't see. I think there's so many people in Vegas, man, that are we're just so that just they love. There's nothing that people love than thinking that they're smarter than other people, and that they're somehow pulling a heist off on the college world. And so if the math isn't there and financially UNLV's, they're saying like, well, we'll give you a couple extra $1 million a year on top of your media payout. People are going to be unhappy, but they're going to try and hold on to that Mountain West, we're smarter than everybody dream as long as they can, even if it's the Titanic is sinking under the water. And that's kind of the biggest reason. And the second reason is like the Mountain West obviously doesn't want to let Vegas go. Like it's supposed to be the new central hub of the conference. And so basically losing your flagship, like where's the Mountain West going to have its headquarters now? Are they going to go to San Jose? They're not going to go to San Jose. Are they going to go to Wyoming? Are they going to go to, I don't even know where they'd go. Albuquerque? Like where's the Mountain West headquarters going to be? They're all in on Vegas. And so giving up Vegas now in mediation seems crazy to me, based on their beliefs. And maybe the Mountain West has a backup plan for their media partner. I know that they didn't think they were going to lose CBS. And I think that they did. We don't know that for sure, but I think that they did. And so I think arrogance and ego would get in the way, and the Mountain West just doing everything it can to claw and keep Vegas as much as possible. And so, after going through all these members and really trying to dig in, and if you think I missed anybody, please let me know in the comments. I know that there's going to be people saying, hey, you missed this, you missed this, you missed this. I don't think there's going to be a ninth member. I think it's just going to be 8. I don't think any of these schools have a great case or a great path to the Pac-12. I think they're going to stick at 8. They're going to be Texas State. They're going to be a full conference, and that's going to be it. But I did have an idea, and I know this is not my idea. People have brought this up in the past, but with the Pac-12 at 8 members, perhaps even maybe this is part of the deal to get UNLV in the Pac-12. But a schedule, ironically, what started this all a couple of years ago when the Mountain West signed a scheduling agreement with Washington State and Oregon State. With the Pac-12 at 8 members, I'm sure that all the schools do not want to have to get 4 non-conference football games. What you could do is a scheduling agreement, which I think would be fair. It's not perfect for both parties, but a scheduling agreement where there would be a game. Every school would have a game against the other in the conference. If you're UNLV, you might have a Utah State game and it would change every year, but each conference would be basically contractually obligated to give each other a game. That would help media-wise, I know, for the Mountain West, and it would give a scheduling opportunity, good geography, established travel with schools already in the Mountain West. And, maybe you get screwed over and have to go to Wyoming or something, but ultimately, I think a scheduling agreement between the new Mountain West and the new Pac-12 would be beneficial for both conferences. It would be a cheap and cost-effective way to get inventory and games and prevent ridiculous scheduling issues. And so I don't see any of these scenarios working out. But there are people that are convinced that UNLV is going to be the 9th member of the Pac-12. And for me, that'd be a dream come true. I would be very happy if UNLV was. Obviously, I think UNLV needs to prepare itself for this 2031, 2032 media environment and realignment environment that's coming up in 5 years. 5 years is a long time from now, though, guys. And UNLV needs to win for the next 5 years, and they need to win against the highest competition that they possibly can. And I think the Pac-12 presents a much better opportunity to do that than the new Mountain West. And again, I don't think the math is here, guys. I don't think the math works. And I bet you the Pac-12 lowered what they were asking CBS in order to kind of undercut the Mountain West and get a media partner in CBS that's going to be a very good media partner for the new Pac-12. Guys, I I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think there's going to be a ninth member, but I wanted to break down the rumor for you in the best way that I could, and hopefully dispel some of the rumors. Maybe UNLV goes to the Pac-12. Maybe not. I guess we'll see. But when mediation deals come out, that's going to be the end of this, guys. Like that's going to be the end of the discussion. Both conferences will probably pause realignment. They will probably go into a waiting period where it's going to be 4 or 5 years. When mediation ends, that's going to end this ninth member UNLV to the Pac-12 thing once and for all. And it'll pause expansion at least for a couple of years for both these conferences. And the dust is going to settle. And then the next thing that would come is the Mountain West media deal, which I'm worried about. I don't think it's going to be very good. So, guys, that's all I had for today. I hope that you'll indulge me in some of those schools that I mentioned earlier, because I was just trying to come up with names of schools. But I hope that you liked the episode. Please subscribe. Please like it. Please leave your comments. Please email me with your thoughts. I would love to know your opinions. And let's run.